Welcome back, everybody, to the Enough Podcast.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah, so as you guys can see, we are not in the normal studio. Funny story, we got locked out, so today's just been kind of a bit of an adventure. We got locked out of the studio.
Computer died.
My computer was dead, but I brought my charger. Thinking ahead. Turns out I brought the wrong charger. Luckily, we have an extra computer here at church that we're using.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God is right, or else this video would just not have been going out when it is.
Yes.
Yeah, man, it's been a fun day to get this video started, but we're glad that you're here with us and watching it.
Yes.
So today we are kind of going to talk about love, but not just love in like a casual way, but how we as Orthodox are called to love.
Orthodox love.
Right.
Yep.
And so this topic kind of came out of a few, I would say, heated conversations with one of my coworkers.
Yeah.
Me and her always go back and forth. We come from two different world views. So when we talk, we're normally just really clashing.
Yeah.
But through these conversations and through different like talking points we were getting through, I realized that the view of love that we have is very different.
Yeah.
Because her view of love is, oh, well, everyone should be able to do whatever they want to do, and we should love them for that. But as the Orthodox, we say, well, we agree with part of that. We say we will love everybody, but we will not condone all of the actions they do.
Yeah, and we have to also go back to, why would Christ, put all of these, laws? Like, why would God have the Old Testament laws and things? Because Christ, the two commandments he gave here was love your neighbor as yourself and love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and body. Mm-hmm. And so it's, loving your neighbor as yourself also is understanding their worldview and, trying to, just love them, even though you're like, because especially right now with all the polarization going on and everything, it's very hard sometimes to love someone with such a vehement, other worldview.
Right.
And no one's willing to back down anymore.
No.
And so, love your neighbor as yourself, that can really help. But, when we love God, and, those laws were not put down just because God wanted to judge us for something.
Right.
It was so we could grow closer to him, because he knows that, okay, these, things, these sins or whatever, are stumbling blocks that would, keep you away from me. And so it's that true love that we need to be seeking, and not because there's also the moralistic love,
right,
of like, and especially in other denominations and things in other religions, it's very like, okay, letter by the letter of the law type thing, legalistic. But Orthodoxy isn't like that in that sense. It's much more, I mean, if you look at many of our saints, they're all like, I mean, some of them were very scummy people, like, in their lifetime, but, they went from that to being a saint of the church, right, and oozing love in God. And so it's kind of that Orthodox love that's totally different. Right. It's not a legal love. It's a love of, I love you where you're at type thing.
Exactly. And one of the church's most famous saints, St. John Chrysostom, has a beautiful quote on this. Oh my gosh, I can't find it because I'm on all the wrong things, but give me 1 second and I'll find it for you guys to read. But it describes this perfectly because it talks about what our love should be.
Yes.
So the quote reads, "We must not mind insulting men if by respecting them we offend God." And I think this is so perfect, especially right now when everyone is saying, well, if you don't accept this viewpoint and this viewpoint, then I don't like you, or you're wrong and I'm going to attack you. But what we must do, especially as Orthodox Christians, is say, if your belief goes against the church, I will say that is wrong, and then I will stop there. I will not attack you. I will not hurt you because of it, but I will pray for you. I will try to, the best of my ability, explain why that's wrong, if they're willing to listen. And if they're not willing to listen, there's no point of trying to fight it.
I mean, and it's also, God will illumine our minds during those situations and things if we ask him to.
Of course.
And we have to also, remember, are we the ones who need to be, because sometimes I know from just interactions with other Christians, they have like a a need to tell someone that what they're doing is wrong and
Mhm.
bad. And even though the other person might not even be Christian or anything, so
Yeah.
we're not holding each other to the same standards, I guess.
Mhm.
We're not coming from the same place. And so having that, I guess the reason you're saying it as I love you, and if you're close enough, like with a coworker, if you're close enough where you can share that, worldview and your the church's side, then with the grace of God, it could bear fruit, that
Right.
conversation.
And all of this is kind of bringing to mind something that our priest talked about in his sermon today.
Yeah.
And it basically is just the common phrasing, like, fix the person in the mirror before you fix others.
Yes.
Help yourself, your soul, like spiritually, before you should go and try to teach everyone. Because if we're struggling with our own passions, like we all do,
Mm-hmm.
and are down on ourselves, how can then we go help someone else and try to change them if we're not
Exactly.
coming at a point with, okay, I know God is with me. I know
Yeah.
that. So I'm going to then go share this love and joy that I've festered
Yeah.
in my soul after working and, struggling for this
Yeah.
grace that He's blessed. And then I'm going to go share that with someone else. Because if you're not, like you were saying before, going at it with love, love is not going to come back. Love
Exactly.
it's for two people. We must learn that we have to just, love someone else so that the
Yeah.
solution may be solved.
And I mean, a piece of advice that I got was if you lose your peace during a conversation, stop it.
Mhm.
Just stop the conversation. Even if you're technically right about
Mhm.
something, even if you're technically like, oh, I got you there, if you're losing your peace, because everyone kind of feels when they lose their peace. You feel the anger rising up or whatever, or you just feel that, oh, I'm going to get you there. And then that's when you realize, if you can catch yourself when you lose your peace and say, this isn't from God and this conversation's not glorifying Him,
Right.
then you can stop. You can be like, oh, you know what? Let's just leave this conversation here for now. And then we can come back at it another time.
Right. And it's a lot easier said than done. And
Oh,
I'll admit,
definitely.
I'm one that will keep going because I
Me
feel
too.
I'm right
Me
in that
too.
pride. And even with this coworker I was talking about, I've done that same thing. Just
Yeah.
because of my pride, I will try to fight and almost intentionally try to kind of make her mad.
Exactly.
Because,
Yeah.
sometimes she'll say stuff that hurts and I'm like, you know what?
It's like a defensive
Right.
type thing.
But that's not loving. That's not what we're here to talk about today.
Mhm.
We're here to talk about how to love. And as we've covered, like, you just, just got to stop while it's at peace. And
Yeah.
and we have to always put God into it and not make ourselves a god of that conversation.
Exactly. Well, I mean, when I was going to my old school, we had a lot of spiritual, theological differences and things.
And it was a Protestant school. Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of, there's a lot of debating going on, and it's very intellect, very, like, we're talking from the mind only. And we're not talking from the soul and seeing each other as we come from different places, and that's okay. I don't need to put my beliefs over you, and you don't need to do that to me. And so what matters is that we love each other as, brothers and sisters, and I think that's kind of what we at least want to give you from this episode, is that when you lose your peace about something, it's not worth it. Because most of the times, like you were saying, getting angry or proving a point right, it feels good in the moment. And then when you walk away from that conversation and you realize, maybe I hurt that other person by saying that, then you feel horrible. It's like overeating.
Right.
It's good eating, tastes good, but then afterwards you have a stomach ache, right? And so, we kind of, if we temper that conversation with love, then fruit will bear from it. And, that coworker that you were saying, they might, if you listen and they listen and everyone's truly trying to understand each other, then, God will come to that.
Right.
God will just let that conversation happen.
Of course.
So, it's a beautiful thing, that Orthodox love. It's not a worldly love.
No.
It's not I love you, but it's an unconditional love. And also a love that isn't like, oh, I love you, so I'm just gonna let you do whatever you want. It's almost like the parent that spoils their child. It doesn't help the child grow if you don't, push them to grow out of that.
Right.
So that's an Orthodox love, I think.
And we've gone on a few tangents through this episode,
Yeah.
but the main things to take is that the Orthodox love is a love that stands up for the faith.
Yes.
That is not afraid to not afraid to be unpolitically correct. Is that the right term?
Yeah.
We're not worried about being politically correct. We're worried about standing up for our faith. We're worried about loving each other, having peace in conversations, bringing God into the every which way.
Yeah, as Christ said, "Blessed are the peacemakers."
Exactly. Yeah.
So let's all try during this very divided time. It seems, with the coronavirus and then the politics and everything. Let's, as Orthodox, let's take up our Orthodox cross and be those peacemakers in this world right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
God is enough.
God is definitely enough for this world.
We'll see you all next week.